because this might be the inner chronicle of what we are, and we have to articulate ourselves, otherwise we would be cows in a field.
Welcome to Cows in the Field. This is a show in which we discuss philosophical themes in popular films. My name is Justin.
I'm Laura.
And today we're discussing the original Emily in Paris, that is, Amelie in Paris. That was a stupid joke. I'm sorry, but I had to make that dumb joke. But truly, though, we are delighted to welcome to the show Brianna Ashby. Brianna is an artist whose work you can find adorning the pages of Bright Wall Dark Room, and she's also the author of a lovely piece on Amelie in Bright Wall Dark Room, which we'll be discussing today. Welcome to the show, Brianna.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So this is, we've had filmmakers on, we've had critics on, we've had some of your colleagues at Bright Wall on. I think this is the first time we've had an artist on. Is that right, Laura? Yeah. So this is a really cool thing. So thank you for joining us. And I want to start just with your history with the movie. So when did you first see the film, and how have your feelings for it evolved over the years?
I saw it when it came out in the theater, which I've now given away my age, which is totally fine.
We're all, I think, around the same age. I think we're, yeah.
And I loved it then, and I had yet to go to Paris. I had never left the country. And of course, it's completely enchanting in every French particular. And then so when I finally got to Paris, just a couple years later, I insisted on going to Montmartre, going to the carousel and doing all of the very sort of like following in Amelie's footsteps without the Zorro costume. I was already a tourist. I didn't need to stand out that much. And I hadn't watched it again. I hadn't watched it in 15 years least until today when I rewatched it.
That is amazing. So when did you write the essay? Had you written that like back when you first saw it, or?
I wrote it in 2016.
Okay.
But I might have, so I might have lied. I might have watched it then.
Yeah.
But it's been at least around 10 years since I saw it last.
How did you feel revisiting it now, and then presumably also revisiting your essay about it? Like, did you feel like your feelings about the film have changed in any way since then?
I don't know that they changed so much as they've kind of deepened. I really found myself weeping a lot more this time around, because the central theme of the movie is really like it's loneliness, and it's disguised in this, it's wrapped in this like gorgeous, visually arresting package. But it really struck me, especially considering kind of the loneliness epidemic that is really prevalent, and it's really real. And kind of watching it again through the lens of how increasingly isolated everyone has become, and the sort of narrowing of the ways that people are willing to bridge those gaps was really striking to me this time around.
As soon as you said that, I just perked up, because I think that is exactly right. So I think watching this movie post-COVID is a very different experience than watching it in 2001. I think one of the things in 2001 is it's easy to get wrapped up in the sort of twee charm of Paris and Genet's like very sort of twinkly, winking, lighthearted stuff. And I think, there was this trend. I don't know if it's a trend, but there was a thing that happened which became known as the manic pixie dream girl, and then Amelie got lumped into that category of these sort of impossibly cool but also beautiful women who seem in some ways like unobtainable, and they're above the fray. And I think what you're getting at though is exactly right. The film is about a woman who is, from her very early on in her life, incredibly isolated because not just because she's homeschooled and, because her father thinks she has some heart condition or whatever, so he keeps her at home, but also she's isolated from her parents too. Like, her part of this film is like her trying to reach out to her father and reconnect to him, and struggling to do that because he is fully, he's never been that present with her, but he's fully retreated by the point in present day in the movie, after the death of his wife, her mother. And I think thinking about that, and thinking about like how in a world where we are all isolated for various reasons, of course, post COVID, we're isolated because, during COVID, we were isolated because we were avoiding getting the disease. But post COVID, and even a little bit before that, there was a greater schism of people in terms of, people wouldn't necessarily just live in the same place they grew up in. They would move, and for their careers or for whatever, for family. And so we're lots of us are farther away from our family than ever before. And this idea, all these scenes of her taking the train to go out to visit her father, who lives much further away. He lives, it looks like, in the outskirts of Paris. It just reminded me of like, yeah, that's that thing that, it's like us having like a weekly Zoom call with my mom so he can talk to our son. And it's like, you do this little catch up every week, or if you're lucky, or every couple weeks. And I think that all sort of really sunk in for me this viewing, and all the twee stuff is there, and it's fun and it's light, but it was for me able to sort of recede into the background, and I was able to see Amelie more as a fully developed character.
Yeah, it was really I was thinking a lot about social media when I was watching the movie, because she goes out of her way to pull these little schemes and concoct her little stratagems to help to basically like sublimate her own loneliness without having to deal with it in any way by helping her neighbors.
Yeah.
And at this point, it has just gotten the world is so completely different than it was then when the movie came out.
Yeah.
That now no one even leaves their house to go do those things. Like everyone's world has gotten so small that we now think that like hitting like on a social media post is what is going to cut it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't cut it.
Oh, and
it didn't cut it for her either.
Exactly.
In these like really charming, elaborate ways that she was trying to. She had the best intentions in the world, but she was also a total coward.
Yes. Yeah. And I think this is one of the things your essay brings out so beautifully, is that, there's a way to think of this film where she's a perfect, she literally is a pixie. If you think of it like, she has a pixie cut, she basically goes around and does little good deeds for people.
Like a little brownie.
Like a brownie or whatever.
Yeah.
And she, and I think that in my head, I had not seen it since it came out, and in my head, I was like, oh yeah, that's what Amelie is. That's just the movie. It's just, she goes around and does silly things, and it's like a really lighthearted, and everybody's happy. And there's no, all the conflict is other people, and she solves those conflicts. Like, that's what I always remembered it as.
And then the movie opens, and they're like, this fish is suicidal being in this house.
Yeah.
Like, this fish cannot deal. Yeah. How is Amelie supposed to like make it? How is she going to survive?
The part at the beginning that I found so striking this time is the reason she's diagnosed by her father with a heart condition.
Yeah.
Is because she desperately wants him to hug her. And the only time he'll touch her is during the exam, the annual,
their monthly exam.
Yeah, exactly. And so it like makes her excited, and he thinks she has a heart condition. And that is so sad. Like and then as a result of this, she's effectively isolated from everyone, and she has to play these, that's where it kind of feels a little bit like, and again, Wes Anderson was just kind of coming on the scene at this point as well too, and it feels like one of those Wes Anderson things where there's like two characters sending smoke signals to one another across a city or something. But that is that kind of like the loneliness of you're just in your room. I mean, that's also the way I thought of it what was it? This movie came out in 2001, right? So I in 2001 I was in high school, and I remember spending a lot of time in my room just by myself. And the early days of the internet, so I had dial-up internet, but that often didn't really work. So most of the time I was just spending time in my room imagining how I was playing. I've told the story on this podcast before, but I would create campaigns in role-playing games that I would never play because nobody wanted to play role-playing games with me. So I would just kind of make up the whole thing, and there it was. I write it all down, and then it would never get played. But that kind of thing, that's how I thought of it through Amelie. And you're right that nowadays this has become this whole thing where you're only in your room all the time is so extreme, because I would still go outside and stuff and see people, but I was spending a lot of time in my room, and now I think people spend basically young people and young sort of professionals are spending a lot of time, especially if they're working from home, just in a single space.
The imagination that she uses as a tool and a kind of a guide, and also like it's all a smoke screen. It's all artifice.
Yes.
And bringing up Wes Anderson, like that's Wes's MO, the artifice of her world and the way that it's constructed in the movie visually as well, really is like there's a purpose to the artifice that I think gets really overlooked when people think about Amelie, and in the same way that it gets overlooked, that Wes Anderson is always accused of just basically making like little cutesy dioramas, essentially. But there's a purpose for that artifice, and I think that really was very apparent to me this time around. And especially when I was looking at the color correction in this movie is, it is, 2 and 11, and it is, but it's so intentional, choosing 2 complementary colors, really, like there's a friction when you use complementary colors, because they are in direct opposition to each other on the color wheel. If you put certain tones of color next to each other, they will look like they are vibrating.
Interesting.
And so it creates a vibrance that doesn't exist in either of those colors until you put them together. And then so that choice to me was it was wonderful. And like, those are the things that I, as a visual artist, tend to gravitate toward when I'm watching a movie. I do occasionally pay attention to things like dialogue or a camera movement or whatever, but like I'm pretty detail oriented in that way. And, this time around, I noticed that, blue gets introduced in really pointed ways after Nino comes into the picture. His plastic bag he's always carrying is blue.
Interesting.
There's a bright blue lampshade next to her when she's cutting up her own photo booth photos to put in to his little scrapbook. So it's like that, the introduction of that color starts coming in pieces, like is a visual indication that she's actually letting something else into her life.
That I did not actually notice that. So the complementary colors in this case, or I don't actually,
red and green.
Red and green.
The red and green.
Yeah, the red and green. And then there's like almost like a sort of an orange tint to a lot of the film too. It seemed like kind of like warm. I guess they were going for sort of a warm tint.
Yeah. It is definitely a warm move, but there are times where I think it does also cool off, and I think it cools off based on her mood a lot of the time. So I think that the color stuff and the way everything is sort of arranged visually is like it's from her perspective.
Yes.
We're seeing things through her particular lens, I
Yes.
think, was the
Yes.
intention
Although
there.
it's interesting because I think we are seeing we get two perspectives, I think. So we get hers and we get Nino's because the part of
Yeah.
the reason I think we get Nino's is that because he often will have his photos will talk to him. There's at least one scene where the photo speaks to him.
Oh yeah. They're telling him about the girl.
And it's as he's going to bed, just as with Amelie when she's going to bed, the paintings sort of speak. I don't know if they're speaking to her, but they at least speak.
I love her art in her house.
Yeah, she's got like a goose and what is it?
The dog with a cone.
A dog, yes. And a pig lamp.
Pig lamp.
Yeah.
He's like a pig in a satin dressing gown.
It's very cute. One other thing about the isolation that I thought was that I was thinking about this time that I of course hadn't thought about in 2001 is how much of everything is mediated. So every interaction that Amelie has with that's a kind of significant interaction is mediated through something. So let me give a bunch of examples here just to start this off. But she engages when she's trying to do all of her good deeds through a kind of mediation. It's either the telephone she calls, or it's through deception where she sort of lies to Georgette and what's his name, Joseph, when she's trying to hook them up. And there is this, and then similarly, actually, with the Dufayel, the other guy in the building who has the brittle bone disease, he has this, again, similarly mediated relationship to the world. Like he has a camera. I love this. He has a camera that points outside at the clock. And then he's got it showing on his television what time it is. He's like, I don't know what time it is. And then their relationship is also mediated through either television, like through videos, or through this painting that he's doing. He's recreating this Renoir painting. And I loved that it's almost like it's too difficult to express the things they want to express directly. So they do it through these mediated ways. They talk through the painting, through the characters in the painting. She sends him these videos of, I don't know, they're just like recordings off of the TV. But they're sort of there to sort of show, I think at least they're there to kind of, she's trying to help him in some ways. And they're there to kind of show him people or things that have kind of overcome an obstacle in some way, like the horse that jumps over the fence to ride in with the Tour de France, and then also the man who has missing a leg who's then dancing. And just I love that aspect of this. But the one other thing where there's mediation is her inner monologue is dramatized or portrayed literally through television. So she gets like she's like watching these newsreels on the TV of her, I don't know, of her like death and their funeral. And she's like, and that's playing out. And she's like, oh, this is showing her like fears or potential regrets. And then also when she's sort of pushing back against Dufayel's sort of advice, she's watching, I don't know what movie this is, but it's like Stalin. And he's like saying like Amelie doesn't need to go out and take any risks. She could just stay at home, and like I love that idea that again it's like that's why when you said like it's this weird movie to watch in 2025, it does feel like this is a movie where like at the time the mediation was television and video cassettes and maybe DVDs. And not the internet, but it's like right there. The internet is coming, and it's going to be this like ultimate mediator in a way that's going to fracture us and disconnect us. It will connect us, but again through a channel that is ultimately preventing us from being actually genuinely connected.
Yeah, and from vulnerability and intimacy in many cases.
Yeah, well, it allows us to have that veneer of like when people are, making fun of people on the internet or whatever, like they don't have to look someone in the eye when they're ridiculing them. And so or even praise them for that matter. Like you can, get that mediated relationship allows for us to engage in these like more complex and difficult emotions without having to really face them. And that's one of the things that Amelie is really struggling with is how to form a kind of intimate relationship. And she's sort of realizing that to do that would be to incur some degree of risk.
Yeah. I mean, because she can't even be real with herself.
Yeah.
And she doesn't start even approaching trying to acknowledge that, maybe this is not the way to do things until Dufayel. He's the only one that really has ever seen her.
Yes.
And sees through her. And he's like, yeah, this is great. I'm watching you, swap out the evil grocer's slippers for a
Yes.
smaller size. But so he watches from afar, but he really sees why she's doing the things she's doing and calls her out, in that sort of indirect, but very direct, pointed way for being a coward, for letting her life pass her by, for not, taking advantage of the things that he can't take advantage of, which is why he can see what she is and what she's missing.
Yes. Like he's literally in a room, a padded room. And her life is a padded room at this point in the movie, right? Because she hasn't had any sort of serious or meaningful relationships with anyone else that would pose any risk to her emotional stability that she's created.
Oh, and there's that scene where she's very happily, grating cheese over her pasta and making her dinner. And then she looks down into his apartment and notices that he's eating this exact same thing for dinner that she is.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of an awakening for her.
Yeah.
I think. She saw her future. And she's, the thing about the Renoir painting was super interesting, using that as a vehicle, doing him painting one every year.
Yeah.
And then not being able to get that one woman drinking the glass of water because she's the enigma. Like she doesn't fit in with the rest of the scene and, with the rest of the world. And that's the tension with the colors. It's the tension with everything. She's totally conflicted about wanting to be part of the world and wanting to remain totally isolated.
I think it's also like deeply sad, but also telling that he is painting the same painting every year for 20 years. And it's like he can't get over this one thing. Fortunately, though, at the end of the movie, he does seem to be painting a different painting. So he's moved on. He's gotten through that one. But I do think that is interesting, and it is, of course, paintings don't change. And when you're painting the same painting, you are also in this like moment of stasis where you can't break through. And I'm thinking a little bit about this from the context of, we have to. We have a kid who does not like to take risks.
Ooh.
And, we know that in order to grow and change and get, develop as a human being, you have to take certain amount of risk. And you have to try things that, are going to be difficult for you. And that's something that Dufayel can't bring himself to do. He struggles with that so much. And I think, Amelie is, she has a slightly different sort of thing. So we're a different response. So one response is you just do the same thing over and over again and you never change. The other response is you detach yourself from it. So it's not really your thing. You can be, it's like, I'm helping these people and it's their lives and I'm not really involved. So if they, I can just kind of be outside or above the fray, so to speak. And I have felt the appeal of both of those in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, I also know that it is only through challenging ourselves that we do grow as individuals. And I think that's one of the lovely lessons or whatever of the film that's dramatized in what both Amelie and Dufayel help each other come to realize.
Yeah. That you have to leave yourself open to possibilities. And, because every other character she's encountered has done that.
Mhm.
And they have all, been broken in their little ways. But I think part of her is jealous. She's envious of her landlady who, was married to a guy who, was a total creep in the end, but she was completely devoted to him and had this, intense devotion to him still, even after his death. And, that whole thing is romantic in its way. And, I think she feels she's envious of people who, are not stunted in the way that she's stunted. Like even, Suzanne and her slightly shorter leg from being dropped by the trapeze artist that she was madly in love with because she got to fall madly in love with someone. And, I think Amelie just is perpetually on the outside of those things.
Yes.
And it's her way of kind of getting involved in them without having to put herself at significant risk until she realizes that she's finally found a thing worth risking herself or risking anything for.
Yes, Nino. And it's interesting that Nino is like her, a person who is carrying out this in his case it's sort of artistic project where he's in a way like trying to reconstruct or reimagine the lives of these people who have thrown away their photos from these photo booths. And it's again from afar, he never engages with these people at all. None of them see this project that he's working on. But he's clearly fascinated by them. In particular, he's fascinated by what we later learn as the repair guy or whatever,
photo booth technician.
But I think like one of the things you said that I think is absolutely right, and it actually surprising that I hadn't actually thought of it in those terms, is that she is in a way envious of the experiences of each of the people that she helps, in part because that is, maybe she doesn't recognize it consciously, but that is their brokenness in a way is representative of their having lived, having had a real experience. And that is so clear with the case of the neighbor, the landlady neighbor. But it's also, I think, it's just take like Georgette and Joseph. These guys are. I find them a very interesting pair because the two of them are also in their own way like deeply lonely and flawed. And so she tries to sort of hook them up by telling each of the others that they like one another. And what I found so interesting about this is they hook up and then almost immediately Joseph goes back to being the same kind of possessive, jealous boyfriend that he was with I think it was Gina, the waitress. And and I think that's that struck me this time because thinking it in 2001 terms, and I was like, oh yeah, she just like makes everyone's lives better. I don't think she makes their lives better.
No.
She provides the spark for a connection, but they have to then do something with it, and they fail to do something with it. That's they don't forge. They're not like getting married, and in fact, actually, his possessiveness really turns Georgette off.
Yeah. Amelie is a very childlike character in all kinds of good and bad ways. I think her wonder at the little things in the world is very childlike, but also I think and her mischievousness, it felt like a very Roald Dahl, all the things that she was doing to the grocer,
Yes.
the foot cream for the toothpaste. But also I think she doesn't totally understand grown up relationships. And so she's kind of trying to machinate, but she doesn't totally, I don't think she has a good sense of who's a good match for who. And she took Suzanne at her word that if you just get two people who are lonely and tell each other, Cyrano de Bergerac style, like they like each other, then that's all going to work out. But like, we were talking about Wes Anderson, and I was thinking a lot about Rushmore. And when we were watching this movie, which came out like a few years prior, I think is that 98.
Yeah, Rushmore's a little early.
But like Max Fisher is that character too, who like fancies himself to be quite mature and thinks that he can kind of like arrange the people's lives around him.
Mhm.
But for Max Fisher, it never really goes well because the grown-ups are always like, "You're a child." For Amelie, this like the approach to this movie is different, but it reminded me of that of like she's kind of just playing around a little bit, and sometimes to good effect, and sometimes not.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't really understand love or relationships.
And in the ways that she does try to help people, it's based on falsehoods. It's based on lies. And
the
it's
landlady
false.
letter does not sit super well.
Yeah,
with
the
me.
landlady letter is interesting.
Yeah. It's, that one, it's rough because and I think in that moment, because she has finally experienced some heartbreak, a little taste of what she, this woman felt all this time. And she asks her, like, do you believe in miracles? And she said, not today. And she realized what she had done. And she, provide like giving her this false hope. And, the pretty little house of cards that she built for everyone, it starts totally falling apart in that moment. And it's the same thing with Georgette and Joseph.
Yeah.
And the only person it really works out for is her father.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because he finally makes the choice on his own to do something for himself.
Yeah.
He wasn't sort of coerced into it by, having something that was too good to be true just fall on his lap. And it was, like, why is my gnome in Minsk, Minsk or wherever? Like, what is happening? And then, so he decides to go to the international airport and see the world.
Yeah.
And so that's the only way it works, is if someone actually takes control of their own destiny.
Yes.
Right. And that's a moving forward. That's a moving forward move. Like, he has been stuck in this mourning space of like, I cannot move from this place where this shrine is to my dead wife. And he's taking a move to break out of that stasis. And the other time that it works out for her is her very first act of kindness when she returns the box.
Yeah, Brett Todo.
But again, that is a choice that the memory.
He has to make that choice.
He makes that choice. She doesn't know any of that backstory about him having a child and a grandchild that he's never met. But like, she sparks something in him, a connection to a younger self of his that allows him to move forward out of being stuck for a really long time.
And it is interesting, just on the idea of deception and falsity, is what inspires her with the Brett Todo thing is her overhearing him sort of telling the people at the bar how moved he was. But she doesn't actually see the outcome of any of this. She just sees him being moved by it, and she thinks like, I've done this great thing. But the great thing is yet to come. It's going to come when he makes the choice to reconnect with his grandchild and his child, presumably.
And it's when she helps the blind man and narrates his path through the street to the train station. That's another like purely selfless maybe not purely selfless thing that she does, but when she gets way more self-interested and being like, I am going to do good because that will absolve me from having to deal with any of my own shit. That's when it goes totally haywire.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, she has these little synchronistic moments where the universe lines up and puts her in the right place at the right time to help these people and do these things. And,
that's right.
But then when she decides like, oh, like now this is something I can do. That's when it's that's when it's not right.
It's false. Yeah, so that's right.
Right. And that's when she starts getting far more elaborate too. I mean,
Yes.
there's an elaborateness to the way that she gave the box back to that man.
Yes.
But like, it's not a 12-step plan the way torturing the grocer is. And, stealing the letters, photocopying the letters, putting them back together, dipping them in tea. I think like you're right. Like synchronicity is a wonderful word. Like she sees somebody and she sees like she has a spark of moment where like I can do a kindness to this person.
Right.
But the more she sort of starts to try to like control her environment and the people the way she likes, then I think it starts to sort of like curdle.
Yeah.
But I read that the director like has a background in puppetry and loves puppets and sort of is like that. He's like, I never really stopped. Like, I love to control everybody and everything. And
I became a director.
And he became a director. And I guess like he was very, 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 very controlled on set about every shot and detail. And the actors were like, yeah, we did a little improv and none of that made it in the movie. Like it was a very specific vision. But I think he feels, there's a camaraderie, I think, between him and Amelie and that desire to control the environment.
I wonder too if there's a camaraderie between him and Hippolito, the failed writer. I do want to mention that character because it is an interesting character, and I'm not totally sure what to make of him. But I think it's kind of cool that Amelie decides after sort of overhearing his lamentations about his failed project or whatever to read one of his collection of stories or whatever, and then she finds a line that she likes, which. The translation that we got, which I didn't actually check the actual French, so
it was a little strange.
It is a little bit strange. I may have actually mistyped this, but it's without you, today's emotions would be I think it's scruff of yesterday's.
I think it's scurf.
Scurf.
Because that's the subtitle on the movie.
Gosh, what is that? What is a scurf?
That is it's like friscolating dusk light from Royal Tenenbaums. It's a word that sounds like it means everything, but it doesn't mean anything. I'm wrong, and it totally has a meaning. But
I don't know. I typed it in, but I think I typed it in wrong, and they were like, "That is not a word." Thank you, AI.
Yep.
Scurf.
So I think it's nonsense.
Yeah,
but I think
the first definition is flakes on the skin that form as fresh skin develop below. Especially dandruff. I don't think that's what they meant. I don't think he meant dandruff.
The scurf of yesterday's.
Well,
you
the
just be the
scales that get sloughed off from the day before. I don't know. Hippolyto is smarter than I am and deeper as a poet.
But I like anyway. So I don't know what to make of that quote, but I like that she finds it and then she writes it on the wall, and I guess then he notices it. And this is, I think, after he had been. He had said some stuff, and Joseph was like, "Yeah, you probably stole that line," and he's like, "I've got some good ideas. It's just everyone steals my ideas." And then he sees, her having sort of graffitied his line and crediting him, and I do think that is interesting. Like that character feels like almost like a self-parody of the kind of like self-possessed French existentialist writer who hangs out in a cafe all day and just like, smokes cigarettes and rails against whatever whatever axes he's got to grind. But anyway, I don't know what you guys think of that character. I found him kind of funny, but he didn't like jump out to me when I first saw it.
He didn't really either, but now that we're talking about it, I mean, he was, I guess, on his like 30th rejection for that he's like persevering and like he has the healthiest take on failure out of everyone. And he's just another example of, I think everyone sort of in her orbit, like Lucien from the, who's always being picked on by Mr. Colonial, is like everyone is in their daily lives overcoming things that she like failure, heartbreak, pain, you name it, all the things that she just like assiduously works to avoid by avoiding them, by creating these little worlds, by like you know, creating like a 4-minute scene to explain why Nino is 10 minutes late
Yes,
to show up
exactly.
at the two windmills.
Yeah. Yeah, she does not want. I mean, that's the thing. Relationships are risky, and they would not be a genuine relationship without risk. Like love is a risk. You to love someone is to put yourself out there in a way where it might not be reciprocated, or in her case, she worries he might turn out to be like an asshole or a bad guy, and she worries about that because when she calls the number to return his book, it's like a porn theater, and she's like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? Like, so I think that is the thing of like, but to not take those risks is to miss out on the real human emotion that comes with taking that risk and and succeeding or failing, whatever. And that is, I think, she living in this hermetic life, like she's sort of she's not able to her like life experience or her I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. We're all lost on words today. Her what is the word I was looking for? Anyway, her life is just less meaningful as a result of that. Anyway.
She keeps just trying to help people that don't really need her help.
Yeah. Well,
like all of these people are like MacGyvering their way through life in, successfully to semi-successfully. And she's inserting herself in it and but they don't need her help. They don't need her to do those things. She thinks they do. She wants to be a hero.
Yeah.
While we were on Hippolyto, can we is there anybody else, any other favorite character? Because I just wanted to make a quick note about one of my
let's hear your faves.
Well, like you're like a fave side character or a fave thing about their introduction of their likes or dislikes.
Sure, yeah.
I really like I was just like, it made me giggle every time we saw oh no, now I'm gonna lose her name. Gina, because Gina is the granddaughter of a healer. That passed by super fast.
That goes very fast.
But she likes to crack her knuckles. But she's the granddaughter of a healer, and I like that she's always like realigning people's spines in the cafe. Like they don't make much of it, but like she's just like and like fixes that guy's neck, or she's like whacking on their shoulders while she's doing her dialogue, and I think that's delightful.
She's like a chiropractor on the side.
On the side, granddaughter of a healer.
Brianna, do you have a favorite of the sort of tertiary side characters?
It's hard to choose. I like Suzanne. She doesn't say much, but she doesn't need to. Yeah. I like a kind of hard-nosed proprietor.
Yeah, she commands the respect of everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With good reason.
What does she say? People need air, or does she say women need air? Women need air.
I had to say, I kind of like Georgette. I think I am Georgette.
You are.
So
Georgette.
like, I think I would just read that.
Your sciatica acting up.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I'm feeling a little woozy. Something's going on with me today. I don't know what's happening. I got another headache. I don't know. The other thing that I think is I'm just kind of curious about, maybe we can think through it, is the film begins and ends with these sort of series of unconnected, otherwise unremarkable little vignettes of these things that are happening. So at the beginning, we have, a gnat that lands on a road, and then a tablecloth billowing in the wind that nobody saw. This guy, Joseph Polanski, who his friend had just died, so he scratched his name of his friend out of the address book. I actually Googled that name, and do you know? I saw like Joseph Polanski. Apparently, if you Google it, it comes up that there was a guy, real Joseph Polanski, who was escaped Treblinka in 1942 and joined the Nazi resistance effort. So I don't know if this is supposed to be the same Joseph Polanski, but anyway. And then then this sort of, again, conception and birth of Amelie. And I love, again, the idea that it's like we have a shot of an egg and a bunch of sperm, and he talks about the sperm. The one sperm is making its way in.
Yeah.
And again, it's just like it's like all this little minute, small, unremarkable things that then are really important. Because of course we have a person that results of that. And then in the end of the film, you've got it ends with where we get the shot of the fair, the marshmallow twister, and some guy learning that there are more connections in his brain than atoms in the universe.
Yeah.
Some nuns are, I don't know what they're playing. They're playing some sort of racquetball game.
Like they're practicing their backhand or something.
Yeah. And then it just like states the weather. Like it's like the humidity. And I think like it's just a very fanciful and strange way to sort of bookend your movie. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
I think it's I feel like it's grounding in a way that, she obviously isn't. It's like the equivalent of, like everyone has their equivalent of sticking their hand in a bag of grain. And it's just all of these like tiny, that's, the whole thing of when introducing a character by their likes and their dislikes, it's just like these tiny little peccadillos that make people human. And it's grounding, and it grounds you, and it connects you to the world in ways that I think, those little vignettes of strangers do too. Like they're interacting with the world, or the world is, sort of interacting with them in some cases, but there's an overlap, and it's an unreality sort of, but like it's not what's happening in her world.
Yeah.
And those are colored differently. Those are
interesting.
They're not tinted. They are just shot naturalistically. Or colored naturalistically.
You know what I was thinking actually? I think that's right. So the idea that like Amelie, the movie's named Amelie after the main character Amelie, but then it goes at pains to sort of give us a lot of what would otherwise be irrelevant information about side characters and things that are happening around Amelie, like as if to just point out like there's a world here. And
there's a Georgette movie and a Georgette world.
Yeah, there's all these things happening, and we can spend time there, just as much as we can spend time with Amelie. It reminded me a little bit of, I think, Linklater's Slacker is a bit like this, where the movie just kind of goes from character to character, and it just sort of picks up with one character, and then it just kind of gets distracted and goes off with another character. And I think that it contributes to this feeling like, yeah, this is a fully realized world, much like our own, where each one of these characters is living their own individual life that has all these issues, and they have their own hopes and dreams that they're and problems they're going through. And I like that. It just like fills it all out in a way that helps remind us that, yeah, there's other people out there. We all think of ourselves as Amelie, we're the main character in our own film, but there are these everyone else is sort of going through their own, someone else is realizing 15 people are having an orgasm right now. I thought that one was kind of funny. Yeah.
Everything is always happening at once. And, like we're all so self-centered that when something bad happens, in particular, when something bad happens, like, when your mother dies when you're 6 and you think like the world should stop or end, but it doesn't. And she retreated inside herself, or, that's what people do when terrible things happen. But nothing ever stops. Nothing ever slows down. Everything is still the same, and everything is still always happening. And I think by having so many tertiary characters and these like seemingly, unimportant little details brought to the forefront about all of these things that are happening on the outside, I think that it sort of cements that idea a little bit.
I want to mention one thing. Now, this is going to be a little bit awkward because I'm going to read your essay back to you, but I think this,
okay.
I love this line. I think it may even be the last line of the essay. And I just think it does speak to something that as a parent I and as a child, because every parent is sort of awkwardly placed between, of course, their own children and their parents. And anyway, I just spoke to me. So I'll just read it and maybe you could reflect on it for a second. So being an adult means making peace with the child that lives in all of us. And when the time comes, trusting ourselves to hold out our hands and let those children lead the way. And I think, in the case of Amelie, this is, of course, dramatized in both her sort of broad kind of childlike innocence throughout the film, but also in the fact that she is the one who is able to help her father eventually sort of, get over his sadness at his wife and actually begin to move on with his life, and go and visit the world. And I do think that we are relatively young parents in the sense that our kid is 6, so fortunately he's not leading the way for us. But I see this, and I'm excited to be in that position where the tables are turned, where then he is the one teaching us about and helping us grow as individuals, and as we have had to do with our parents. We've had to sort of help them understand certain things in our lives, but then also reflect on their lives. And I think that is, anyway, I think it's a lovely note to sort of end the essay on, but it's also a lovely feature of the film where Amelie didn't have a great childhood, but nonetheless she can sort of overcome that and like do right by her father, even though she cannot maybe fully get what she wanted out of her father in the sense of having that kind of attention that she needed. She could still nonetheless help him get something more out of life. And I think there's something really like meaningful and powerful about that.
Yeah. And I mean, we obviously don't get to see what their relationship turns into, but what she does is bridges the gap that existed between the two of them.
Yeah.
And with them each sort of leaving their own little enclaves of solitude, it's conceivable that they could actually have a relationship when they come back together, now that she's fallen in love and he's seen the world. And I think there's a degree of understanding that could come in Amelie 2 coming to theaters.
No, it would be, I mean, that's what one would hope, and I think that is part of the promise of this kind of renewal. But yeah, I was just struck by that because I do think it's not a way I would have thought about this movie as when I first saw it. It's just and that's the mark of, I think, a lovely deep piece of fiction or art, is that as we grow and change, the film kind of grows and changes with us. Like our experience of watching it, we get different things out of it. We see it from different perspectives, and our appreciation of it deepens or in various ways. And I thought that was, anyway, that spoke to me, and I appreciated when I read that. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
So Brianna, thank you very much for joining us. Now you are an artist, and you've talked a little bit about on here about color theory and all that, but tell us and tell the people listening about the work that you do, both for Bright Wall, and then I know on your website you also sell prints and things.
I do. I don't do as much work for Bright Wall as I used to. I actually co-founded it as the magazine that it is today.
Amazing. I didn't realize that. Oh, so cool.
I did. I actually started out as a writer when they were still on Tumblr many, many years ago. That's where it started. Basically, I am a freelance pop culture illustrator. I go where I am needed, wanted, requested. I do mostly portraiture. I do album covers. I do editorial for magazines. I do the occasional book cover. And that is, that's the bare bones. That's the gist.
That's amazing. Where are you? What's your website so that people can go and check it out? And if they want to order prints,
It is just Brianna-Ashby.com.
Okay. And are you also active on any social media sites?
On Blue Sky, the good social media site now.
Yeah.
I'm also on Instagram, which I am less active on, but I'm there. But mostly Blue Sky. I have abandoned my Twitter.
Thank you very much for being here. People should check out your art. It's beautiful. It's really, really
Thank
gorgeous.
you.
So check it out. And as for us, we are at CowsPod on Twitter and Blue Sky, and you can find us on the web at cowspod.com. In 2 weeks, we'll be talking to returning guest Emily St. James about our Christmas movie of the year, The Santa Claus. So we'll see you then. Bye.